In 1967, a 19-year-old kid from a tiny Oklahoma town nobody had ever heard of walked into the Cincinnati Reds clubhouse for the first time. He was skinny, confident, and completely unknown. The backup catcher, Don Pavletich, looked him up and down and said, "So you are here to take my job?" "No," the kid replied. Then he pointed across the clubhouse to the starting catcher, Johnny Edwards. "I am here to take his." That same year, Hall of Famer Ted Williams met the kid during spring training. Williams watched him catch a few innings, then signed a baseball. The inscription read, "To Johnny Bench." A Hall of Famer for sure. Williams had seen a lot of catchers like Bill Dickey, Yogi Berra, and Roy Campanella. He knew what greatness looked like. 22 years later, Ted Williams' prophecy came true. Johnny Bench was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame on his first ballot with 96.4% of the vote. ESPN called him the greatest catcher in baseball history. The Sporting News ranked him the highest catcher on their list of the 100 greatest players ever. But Bench did not just play the catcher position. He changed how every catcher who came after him would catch, throw, and think about the game. He hit more home runs than any catcher in history. He won 2 NEVP awards, 10 consecutive Gold Gloves, and led the most dominant team of the 1970s, the Big Red Machine, to back-to-back World Series championships. This is the story of Johnny Bench, the greatest catcher who ever lived. Johnny Lee. Bench was born on December 7, 1947, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. His father, Theodore William Bench, was a World War II Army veteran who had served 2 hitches at Fort Sill with the 1st Field Artillery. After the war, Ted married Kathleen Cheney, a local girl he had met in Oklahoma City. They called her Katie. Johnny was the third of 4 children. He had 2 older brothers, Teddy and William Clay, and a younger sister, Marilyn. The family had Choctaw heritage. Johnny's great-grandmother on his father's side was a full-blood Choctaw, making him 1/8 Native American. He was always proud of that heritage. When Johnny was 3 years old, the family moved from Oklahoma City to the tiny town of Binya, about 55 miles to the southwest. Binya had a population of around 600 people. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, where kids grew up playing in the dirt, and where life moved at the speed of a tractor on a country road. Ted Bench ran a propane gas business in the area for his uncle. The family was not wealthy, but they were close-knit and hard-working. Johnny grew up picking cotton and delivering newspapers. He described his mother as the perfect parent, loving, a great cook, always cheering, always there to fix up a scraped knee or give a hug when you needed one. Ted Bench was a baseball man. He had played the game when he was young and had never lost his love for it. He taught all 3 of his sons how to play. But with Johnny, he saw something special. The boy had extraordinary hands. Even as a child, his hands were enormous for his size. He could eventually palm a basketball, and in later years, he would famously hold 7 baseballs in one hand at the same time. Ted gave his youngest son a piece of advice that would shape his entire career. "If you want to get to the majors as fast as possible," he said, "become a catcher. Nobody wants to catch. If you can do it well, you will get there faster than anyone else." So Johnny became a catcher. His father trained him relentlessly. Ted taught Johnny to throw from a crouch, building arm strength until the boy could fire the ball 254 feet, twice the distance from home plate to second base. Johnny later boasted that he could throw out any runner alive. The family played a street game called Tin Can, using a flattened mill-knot can as a bat. Johnny swung at that tin can until he could hit anything. His boyhood idol was Mickey Mantle, another kid from a small Oklahoma town, Commerce, who had made it all the way to the New York Yankees. If Mantle could do it, Johnny figured, so could he. At Binjawani High School, Johnny was not just a great athlete. He was the best student in his class, graduating as valedictorian in 1965. He was named All-State in both baseball and basketball. He was the complete package, brains and talent. In 1965, Tragedy struck when the bus carrying his high school baseball team was involved in a crash. 2 of Johnny's teammates were killed. He survived, but the experience left a deep mark. It was one of those moments that reminded him how fragile life could be, and it only made him more determined to make the most of his abilities. That same year, the Cincinnati Reds selected Johnny Bench in the 2nd round of the amateur draft. 36th overall, he signed and headed to the minor leagues. His first stop was the Peninsula Grays in the Carolina League, single-A ball. He hit a .294 batting average with 22 home runs and was named the league's Player of the Year. The Grays were so impressed that they retired his number 8, an almost unheard-of honor for a minor leaguer passing through. Bench moved up to AAA Buffalo in 1966, but his time there started with disaster. In his very first inning, a foul tip smashed into his right thumb and broke it, ending his season. Then, on the long drive back to Oklahoma in his 1965 Ford Fairlane, a drunk driver slammed into his car. Bench wound up in the hospital with 27 stitches in his scalp. He was 19 years old, and he had already survived a fatal bus crash, a broken thumb, and a car accident. Most people would have questioned whether fate was telling them something. Bench came back to Buffalo in 1967 and hit 23 home runs with a rocket arm that made base runners think twice about stealing. One game that season became legendary. Bench stepped to the plate against a young Baltimore Orioles pitcher named Jim Palmer and hit a grand slam. In Palmer's entire Hall of Fame career, spanning 20 years, he never gave up another grand slam. Bench hit the only one. The Reds called him up in August of 1967. He was 19 years old. He hit just a .163 batting average in 26 games. But nobody cared about the batting average. What they saw behind the plate was something that had never existed before. In 1968, his official rookie season, Bench hit a .275 batting average with 15 home runs and 82 runs batted in. He became the first catcher in history to win the National League Rookie of the Year award. He also became the first rookie catcher to win a Gold Glove, recording 102 assists, the first time a catcher had reached 100 assists in 23 years. Dave Bristol, the Reds manager that season, said of his young catcher, "One of the finest catchers in the league of all time. He has ability that is not noticed at times. He is strong, he has quick release of the ball, agile, and he has great body balance." Bristol made those comments when Bench had exactly 1 full season of experience and was 5 months shy of his 21st birthday. But the numbers only told part of the story. What Bench did behind the plate was revolutionary. Before Johnny Bench, catchers used 2 hands to receive every pitch. They kept their bare throwing hand right next to the mitt, ready to trap the ball. It was the way catching had been done since the beginning of baseball. The problem was obvious. Foul tips destroyed fingers. Catchers played through broken bones, jammed thumbs, and mangled hands. It was the most physically punishing position in sports. Bench changed everything. After breaking his thumb in Buffalo, he decided he was never going to let it happen again. He adopted a one-handed catching style, receiving pitches with only his mitt hand while tucking his bare throwing hand safely behind his back or his hip. He switched to a hinged catcher's mitt instead of the old circular pillow-style glove, and he pulled most of the padding out for better feel and quicker ball transfer. To be fair, Chicago Cubs catcher Randy Hundley had pioneered the one-handed technique slightly before Bench. But Bench perfected it, popularized it, and made it the standard for every catcher who came after him. He could backhand pitches in the dirt, something catchers had never attempted. He could receive the ball and fire to second base in a single fluid motion, his pop time among the fastest ever recorded. Not everyone approved. NBC broadcaster Joe Garagiola, a former catcher himself, publicly said that Bench was going to ruin catching. Bench proved him spectacularly wrong. Within a decade, every catcher in baseball was using his technique. There was also the famous incident with pitcher Jim Maloney. During a game, Maloney kept shaking off Bench's signs, insisting his fastball was still popping. Bench got fed up. He called for the fastball, tucked his mitt under his arm, and caught Maloney's 90+ miles per hour pitch, bare-handed. Just to make a point, when Cubs manager Leo DeRocha saw Bench make a play at the plate during his rookie year, he said, "I still do not believe it. I have never seen that play executed so precisely." Reds manager Sparky Anderson put it more simply, "I do not want to embarrass any other catchers by comparing them with Johnny Bench." In 1970, at age 22, Bench had the greatest season any catcher has ever produced. He hit .293 with 45 home runs and 148 runs batted in, leading the National League in both categories. He set a franchise record for RBI that stood for decades. He became the youngest player to win the National League MVP award. He was also the first catcher in history to lead the league in home runs and the first to hit more than 40 in a single season. That catcher home run record stood for 51 years until Salvador Perez hit 48 in 2021. Bench still holds the National League record. The Reds won the National League West that year and swept the Pittsburgh Pirates in the National League Championship Series. Bench hit .333 with a home run and 3 runs batted in during the sweep. Cincinnati was headed to its first World Series since 1961. They ran into the Baltimore Orioles, a powerhouse that had won 108 games during the regular season. The Orioles were led by Frank Robinson, Boog Powell, and a pitching staff anchored by Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, and Mike Cuellar. But the star of the series was third baseman Brooks Robinson, who put on one of the greatest defensive displays in postseason history. Robinson made diving catch after diving catch, robbing Bench and his teammates of hit after hit. In Game 1, Robinson backhanded a smash down the line that seemed destined for extra bases and threw out the runner. He made similar plays throughout the series, turning sure hits into outs and demoralizing the Reds lineup. The Orioles won in 5 games. Bench hit .211 for the series, but he took the loss hard. He had tasted the World Series for the first time and came away hungry for more. 2 years later, in 1972, Bench won his second MVP award, hitting .270 with 40 home runs and 125 runs batted in, leading the league in both categories again. He was now firmly established as the most complete catcher in baseball history, dominating on both sides of the ball. The Reds won the National League West and faced the Pirates again in the National League Championship Series. Pittsburgh had Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, and a pitching staff led by Steve Blass. It was a war. Game 5 was one of the most dramatic playoff games in baseball history. The Pirates held a 3-2 lead entering the bottom of the 9th inning. Pittsburgh closer Dave Giusti was on the mound, 3 outs away from sending the Pirates to the World Series. Bench led off the inning. He drove Giusti's pitch deep to right field. The ball cleared the fence for a home run, tying the game at 3. It was an opposite field shot. A demonstration of pure power and clutch hitting from a man who refused to let his team's season end. The Reds eventually won 4-3 when a wild pitch allowed the winning run to score. That home run is still considered one of the most clutch moments in postseason history. Bench had hit at least 1 home run in every postseason series of his career. The man lived for October. The Reds advanced to the World Series against the Oakland Athletics, a scrappy, mustachioed team led by Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter, and Rollie Fingers. The series was tightly contested. 5 of the 7 games were decided by 1 run, but the Athletics prevailed, winning in 7 games. Bench hit .270 for the series, but the Reds could not quite get over the hump. Cincinnati had now lost 2 World Series in 3 years. The hunger for a championship was growing unbearable. The pieces were almost all in place. They just needed one more thing to fall into position. By the mid-1970s, the Cincinnati Reds had assembled one of the greatest teams in baseball history. They called themselves the Big Red Machine. and the nickname was no exaggeration. This was a roster loaded with future Hall of Famers, MVP winners, and all-stars at nearly every position. The lineup read like a Hall of Fame roster. Pete Rose at third base, the man they called Charlie Hustle, who played every game like it was his last. Joe Morgan at second base, a 5'7" dynamo who would win back-to-back MVP awards in 1975 and 1976. Tony Perez at first base, the quiet Cuban slugger who drove in runs with mechanical consistency. Dave Concepcion at shortstop, one of the most athletic infielders in the game. George Foster in left field, who would hit 52 home runs in 1977. Cesar Geronimo in center field, a defensive wizard. Ken Griffey Sr. in right field, a smooth hitter with blazing speed. And Johnny Bench behind the plate, the anchor of everything. They became known as the Great Eight, and when all eight played together, they were virtually unbeatable. In 80 games with that exact lineup, they lost just 16 times. No team in modern history could match that kind of dominance with a single lineup. The Great Eight lineup was born on May 2, 1975, when Sparky Anderson asked Pete Rose, the team captain and a two-time Gold Glove-winning outfielder, if he would mind moving to third base. Anderson needed to get George Foster's bat into the lineup, and the only way to do it was to move Rose out of left field. Rose agreed without hesitation. Foster slid into the outfield spot Rose vacated, and the most feared lineup in baseball was complete. During the 1970s, the Reds reached the postseason 6 times. They won the NL West in 1970, 1972, 1973, 1975, 1976, and 1979. They appeared in 4 World Series and won 2. 6 different Reds players won MVP awards over an 8-year stretch. It was a dynasty in every sense of the word. In 1975, the Reds won 108 games and rolled through the playoffs to face the Boston Red Sox in what many consider the greatest World Series ever played. The Red Sox had their own stars. Carl Yastrzemski was still playing at a high level. Rookie outfielders Fred Lynn and Jim Rice had carried the team all summer. And behind the plate, Carlton Fisk was establishing himself as one of the best catchers in the American League. The matchup between Bench and Fisk added another layer of intrigue. The series went 7 games, each one more dramatic than the last. Rain delays pushed the schedule back. Lead changes kept fans on the edge of their seats. In Game 3, a controversial play at home plate involving Ed Armbrister's bunt ignited a firestorm that lasted for days. Then came Game 6, one of the most famous baseball games ever played. The Red Sox trailed 3-2 and faced elimination. In the bottom of the 12th inning, Carlton Fisk drove a pitch down the left field line. He stood at home plate, waving his arms, willing the ball to stay fair. It did, clanging off the foul pole for a walk-off home run that sent Fenway Park into delirium and forced a Game 7. But the Reds won Game 7, 4-3 on Joe Morgan's bloop single in the top of the 9th inning. Pete Rose was named Series' Most Valuable Player. Bench hit .261 with a home run. The Big Red Machine had its first ring. Then came 1976. The Reds won 102 games, finishing 10 games ahead of the second-place Los Angeles Dodgers. They swept the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League Championship Series. In the decisive Game 3, with the Phillies clinging to a 6-5 lead in the 9th inning, Bench hit a home run off reliever Ron Reed to tie the game and spark the winning rally. It was yet another October moment from a man who seemed to save his best for when it mattered most. The World Series matched the Reds against the New York Yankees, who were in the postseason for the first time in 12 years. The Yankees had won the American League pennant behind Thurman Munson, Chris Chambliss, Catfish Hunter, and the fiery managing of Billy Martin. The storyline was the battle of catchers, Bench versus Munson, widely regarded as the 2 best in the game. Bench had struggled during the regular season. Shoulder problems had limited him to a .234 average with just 16 home runs, one of the least productive years of his career. Many wondered if the years behind the plate were finally catching up to him. He was only 28, but catchers age faster than anyone. The Reds won Game 1 5-1 behind Don Gullett. Game 2 went to the ninth inning, tied at 3 before Ken Griffey scored the winning run on a Tony Perez single. The series shifted to Yankee Stadium for Games 3 and 4, but the change of venue did nothing for New York. The Reds took Game 3 6-2. In Game 4, the clincher, Bench delivered the performance of a lifetime. In the fourth inning, with the score tied 1-1, he hit a 2-run home run just inside the left field foul pole to give the Reds a 3-1 lead. Then in the ninth inning, with the Reds clinging to a 3-2 advantage and the Yankees threatening to extend the series, Bench crushed a 3-run home run to left field that blew the game open. Cesar Geronimo and Dave Concepcion followed with consecutive doubles, and the Reds won 7-2. "What a relief it is for me to do something for that team after I did not do much all year," Bench said afterward. He finished the series hitting .533, going 8 for 15 with 2 home runs, 6 runs batted in, and 4 runs scored. He had 2 hits in every single game. On defense, he threw out one of the 2 runners who tried to steal on him and recorded a pickoff at second base. He was named World Series Most Valuable Player, only the second catcher to receive the honor. Munson hit .529 in a losing effort, a remarkable performance in its own right, but Bench's star shined brighter. The Big Red Machine had won back-to-back championships. They were the first National League team in 54 years to accomplish the feat. They remained the last National League team to do so. The price Bench paid for his greatness was enormous. Catching is the most physically destructive position in professional sports. The constant crouching, the foul tips, the collisions at the plate, the daily grind of squatting for 150 games a year. It breaks bodies down faster than any other position. By 1978, at just 29 years old, Bench's knees were deteriorating badly. The cartilage was worn down from years of crouching. Every game behind the plate was a test of endurance. During his career, he broke 6 bones in each foot from foul tips. Think about that. 12 broken bones in his feet, all from balls ricocheting off bats at high speed. He broke his thumb twice. He battled chronic back and shoulder problems from violent collisions at home plate, where runners barreled into him trying to score. After his playing career ended, he needed both left and right hips replaced. Injuries he traced all the way back to the bus crash and car accident he had survived as a teenager in Oklahoma. Despite the punishment, Bench set a major league record in 1980 by catching 100 or more games for the 13th consecutive season. No catcher had ever endured that kind of workload for that long. It was his final full year behind the plate. After the 1980 season, the Reds moved him to first base and then third base for the final 3 years of his career, trying to preserve what was left of his battered body. He caught only 13 games over those last 3 seasons. The knees, the feet, the back, the shoulders, all of it was finally giving out. The machine was winding down. Bench announced his retirement during the 1983 season. The Reds sent him on a farewell tour of every National League city, where fans stood and cheered the greatest catcher they had ever seen. On September 17, 1983, the Reds held Johnny Bench Night at Riverfront Stadium. A capacity crowd showed up for a 50-minute pre-game ceremony. Sparky Anderson, who had managed Bench through the Big Red Machine years, flew in from Detroit, where he was now managing the Tigers. Former teammates from the championship teams gathered to honor the man who had been their leader for more than a decade. Then the game started against the Houston Astros. In the third inning, Bench stepped to the plate against a rookie left-hander, Mike Madden. He hit a line drive to left field that cleared the fence. Number 389, the last home run of his career. The crowd erupted, giving him a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. It was the kind of moment that Hollywood scriptwriters dream about, the farewell home run on the farewell night. Bench also caught 3 innings that evening, crouching behind the plate one final time. It was his first time catching since the previous season. He wanted the fans to see him where he belonged, behind the plate, one last time. 12 days later, on September 29th, Bench came to bat for the final time against the San Francisco Giants. He stroked a pinch-hit 2-run single off Mark Calvert. A pinch runner named Gary Reedus replaced him, and Johnny Bench walked off the field at Riverfront Stadium for the last time as a player. His magnificent career was over. His career numbers told the story of a man who dominated both sides of the ball for 17 years. 389 home runs, the most by any catcher in baseball history at the time of his retirement. 1,376 runs batted in. 2,048 hits. A .267 batting average. 14 All-Star selections. 10 consecutive Gold Glove awards. 2 MVP awards. The Rookie of the Year award. The World Series MVP award. 2 World Series championships. He led the National League in home runs twice and in runs batted in 3 times. He led the league in caught stealing percentage 3 times. He hit at least 1 home run in every one of his 10 postseason series, except one. In 1989, Johnny Bench was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame alongside Carl Yastrzemski. He received 96.4% of the vote, 431 out of 447 ballots. It was one of the highest totals in history at that time. The Reds had already retired his number 5 and inducted him into the team's Hall of Fame 3 years earlier. In 1997, Major League Baseball named him to the all-time team. In 1999, he was voted the starting catcher on the All-Century team, beating out Yogi Berra, who had won 10 World Series championships. The fans and experts agreed. Bench was the greatest to ever crouch behind home plate. After retirement, Bench stayed connected to the game. He worked as a radio and television broadcaster for the Reds, bringing his deep knowledge of the sport to a new generation of fans. He hosted the Baseball Bunch, a syndicated television show that taught kids how to play baseball, featuring appearances from other legends and the famous San Diego Chicken mascot. The show ran for several seasons and introduced millions of children to the fundamentals of the game. He competed in senior golf events, applying the same competitiveness to the fairway that he had once brought to the batter's box. He became a fixture at baseball functions, charity events, and memorabilia shows across the country. In 1989, Bench became the first individual baseball player to appear on the front of a Wheaties cereal box. The honor had previously been reserved for Olympic athletes and football stars. Bench had eaten Wheaties as a kid in Binger, remembering the picture of Olympic pole vaulter Bob Richards on the box. Now, his own face was there. He authored 2 books, Catch You Later in 1979, written with William Brashler, and Catch Every Ball, How to Handle Life's Pitches in 2008, written with Paul Doherty. Both offered insights into his career and his philosophy on baseball and life. Bench has been married multiple times, including to Vicky Chesser in 1975, which lasted about a year, and to Laura Kwiatkowski in 1987, with whom he had a son named Bobby Binger Bench. The middle name honored his hometown. Off the field, Bench devoted himself to charitable work. In 1983, the Reds established the Johnny Bench Scholarship Fund with an initial $25,000 donation. The fund has since supported dozens of students across 10 colleges and universities, including 8 from Binger. When people debate the greatest catcher in baseball history, certain names always come up. Yogi Berra won more championships, 10 in all, a number that may never be matched. Roy Campanella won 3 MVP awards in just 10 seasons before a car accident tragically ended his career. Mike Piazza hit for a higher average and may have been a better pure hitter. Ivan Rodriguez won 13 Gold Gloves and may have had an even stronger arm. Carlton Fisk played longer and hit more career home runs. But none of them did what Johnny Bench did, None of them combined power hitting, elite defense, innovative technique, and leadership on a championship team the way he did. None of them revolutionized their position the way he did. None of them changed the fundamental mechanics of how catching is taught to every young player who straps on the gear. And none of them walked into a major league clubhouse at 19 years old and told the starting catcher he was there to take his job and then actually did it. Roger Kahn, the legendary sports writer who wrote The Boys of Summer, once told Red Smith, "I have seen Campi and Berra. This fellow is better than that." Frank Cashen, the baseball executive, perhaps described Bench best. The way I see it, the first thing you want in a catcher is the ability to handle the pitches. Then you want defensive skill, and of course the good arm. Last of all, if he can hit with power, well then you have got a Johnny Bench. Ted Williams saw it first. A scrawny teenager from a town of 600 people, a place that was, as Bench himself joked, about 2.5 miles beyond resume speed. Williams looked at this kid and knew. A Hall of Famer for sure, he was right. Johnny Bench did not just become a Hall of Famer. He became the standard by which every catcher in baseball history is measured. He changed how the position is played. He proved that a catcher could be the best player on the best team in baseball, from picking cotton and hitting tin cans in Binger, Oklahoma, to standing on the field at Yankee Stadium with a World Series MVP trophy in his hands. From a broken thumb in his first inning at Buffalo to 10 consecutive Gold Gloves. From a town of 600 people that nobody had ever heard of to the hallowed halls of Cooperstown. Johnny Bench took his father's advice. He became a catcher, and he became the greatest one who ever lived. That is the story of Johnny Bench, the kid who walked in and said he was there to take the starting job, and then spent 17 years proving that nobody could take it from him. The greatest catcher who ever lived. Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.